Hey guys, it's September the 25th, 2025, and I hope everybody's been having a wonderful day so far today. What I wanted to talk about today is that deep, dark hole that, alcohol or drugs can take us down. Often we go to using alcohol or a substance as a means to help alleviate stress, anxiety, just to help us through just everyday life. You're having a bad day at work, or you're just having a bad day in general, or something's really stressing you out and you're afraid about something, or whatever it may be. But we use alcohol or a substance as a means to alleviate that anxiety, or when we have to get into a social environment, we've got to speak to a bunch of people. I was talking about this just last week, getting up and doing public speaking, something like that. The thing is, like I was talking about in yesterday's video, is that alcohol actually works. It works until it doesn't. And that's what I wanted to talk about today, is when it stops working, when we get to that deep, dark place, where alcohol or substance has been working for, whatever allotted amount of time. And then it gets to that point, like I said, where it stops working for us anymore. It's not doing what we want it to do for us anymore. And as a matter of fact, it starts to do the exact opposite. It starts to really take us into a very dark, dark place. And like I said, that's what I wanted to discuss today. When I say I wanted to talk about, the deep, dark hole, what I mean by that is when, like I said, you get to the point where the alcohol, the substance, stops working for you anymore. It's not doing what you want it to do. And as a matter of fact, a lot of times it starts doing the exact opposite. You're using alcohol as a anxiety reliever, but what ends up happening is the alcohol at some point will actually start to induce anxiety. And it's one of those things that I've discussed on here many, many times, but the phenomenon called hangxiety, it's where you wake up the next morning and you're just plagued with anxiety for no reason whatsoever. And what's going on is the alcohol that's creating it. You are getting like a rebound effect from the drinking the next day, and all of a sudden you have this huge onset of anxiety, like I said, that came from absolutely nowhere. And what it can end up starting to do, like I said, let's say that you got drunk the night before, you wake up the next morning. As soon as you wake up the next morning, like I said, you're just plagued with this feeling of anxiety that you don't understand where it came from. You don't understand why you're so anxious, so stressed out feeling. Everything's starting to scare you. You're afraid to even get in your vehicle and drive to work. You're afraid to go to work. You're afraid to be around the people there. You just have this feeling of like impending doom, and you don't understand why that is. So what ends up happening, and I know it happened for me, is I began to seriously isolate because the anxiety was so powerful. I was afraid to leave my home. I was afraid to get behind the wheel of a car and drive anywhere. And I would start thinking about this stuff before I left the house that morning, and would start playing out all these scenarios in my head and things that were going to go wrong just on the way to work, and thinking about all these things. And like I said, the anxiety would be so bad that I would not want to go anywhere. And especially whenever I had left my job as a chef and started my own business, and then I had the freedom to come and go as I pleased. There were a lot of mornings where I decided just not even to leave the house. I would call my client or send them a text message to say I'm not going to be able to make it today. And one of the biggest reasons why is because the anxiety that I had was just so overwhelming that I was afraid to leave my home. So I would just stay home all day long, inside the house, basically just laying in my bed in my bedroom, because my anxiety was so terribly bad. And with all of that, I began to, like I said, isolate. And the depression from the isolation and not interacting with people socially for long periods of time. I was isolating for weeks at a time, not seeing hardly anyone at all. And the depression that came with that was horrible. I mean, it was absolutely horrible. I didn't want to leave my home anymore. I didn't want to hang out with anybody. I didn't want to talk to anybody. It had gotten to the point where it was just myself and my booze. And that was it. You know, it was just myself and my best friend. And that's what alcohol had become for me. Alcohol was my, like I said, my best friend, my confidant. It was what I used for every single thing under the sun. You know, if I was anxious, depressed, scared, sad, you know, overwhelmed, overworked, tired, angry, whatever it was, I used alcohol as a means to help suppress those feelings. But and the thing is with alcohol, like I said in the beginning of the video, is that it worked well in the beginning, but then it got to the point where it stopped working for me. It was doing the exact opposite. All the things that I was trying to run away from using the alcohol, it was actually creating those situations and making them even worse for me. And like I said, it got to the point where I just started to isolate. I didn't want to leave my home anymore. There would be days where I would wake up in the morning, first thing, you know, like every other day, I'd wake up, throw up, spend an hour or two sitting on the toilet with diarrhea. You know, while I'm sitting there, I'm drinking my cocktail. And then it would get to a point where I was like, you know what, I just want to lay in the bed all day long. And I would get my bottle of vodka, my mixer, my cup of ice, and I would just lay in my bed and not get up for the entire day unless I had to pee. Or I needed more ice, or I needed some more Sprite or something like that. But for the most part, I just laid in the bed all day long, flipping through YouTube channels, afraid to leave my bedroom. And the way that that made me feel, the helplessness, the hopelessness, the feeling of worthless, just being worthless anymore. You know, I didn't feel like I was contributing to society anymore. I had become basically a hermit, and all I wanted to do was just lock myself in my bedroom and drink all day long. And that's no way to live. That's not a life. And that's what I wanted to talk about today, is that deep, dark hole of depression that we can end up in when we, you know, get really, really deep in either alcohol or a substance, and we begin to isolate and not socialize and talk to people anymore. And then we start to live in our own heads, and that can become a very uncomfortable place, especially when you're that depressed. And you really cannot dig your way out of it. It's very, very difficult. And I would go on these periods of time, these binges of weeks at a time, where I just binge drank, you know, for, you know, 2 to 3 weeks of every single day, just first thing waking up in the morning and drinking to blackout drunk every single afternoon. You know, and when I say blackout drunk, you know, I was getting up in the morning drinking, and I would be blackout drunk by 1, 2 o'clock every single day, and then pass out, sleep away the whole entire afternoon, wake back up at 7, 8 o'clock in the evening, and then start drinking all over again. And that had become my life. That, you know, this pattern started to develop. And I'm sure that there's a lot of you out there who can relate to that pattern, where, you know, your life becomes a pattern, and it becomes a pattern of just intoxication, sleeping, waking up, intoxication, sleeping, and that's all that your life becomes. It's this whole cycle of just getting drunk, waking up, throwing up, going to the bathroom, waking up, throwing up, getting drunk, going to the it's just this, it's the same thing every single day. And like I said, that's just no way to live. And your mind starts to get into this place of, like I said, of hopelessness. You feel like there's no way out, like you're never going to be able to dig your way out of this. And this is going to be what your life is forever. You know, just chasing around a couple bucks, enough money to scrounge together to buy a bottle for the day, enough money to get your mixer, and enough money to get a pack of smokes, and that becomes your life. Or maybe it's chasing down a substance, you know, whatever the particular substance is for you, and trying to scrounge enough money together to buy the substance for the day, you know. And that stuff, as soon as you wake up in the morning, your mission becomes all about that. You know, I've watched so many videos on YouTube where these YouTubers go out into the streets, and, you know, they'll interview these people that are hooked on, you know, fentanyl and things like that. And, you know, they talk about how, you know, they get enough money together, you know, they'll go out and panhandle or shoplift or do whatever they have to do, or maybe some odd jobs here and there, but they scrounge up enough money to get their fentanyl, and then they use it all up, and then the next day they get up, and, you know, that's the mission of their day, is just get enough money to be able to make the withdrawals go away, and then get enough money to be able to get high for the rest of the day. don't worry about anything else, and that's all that they care about. I've seen so many people that are stuck in that loop and that cycle, and they can't get out. And the look on their face, like I said, that look of hopelessness, the sadness that they have inside of them, the darkness that you can see inside of their eyes, how lost of a soul that they have become. They've lost all purpose in life other than to get intoxicated or to keep from getting sick. That is all that their life has become. And that can be so depressing because you lose all hope in life. You don't have any other desires, and nothing else excites you. Nothing else, when you wake up in the morning, there's nothing else in the back of your mind that you're thinking, like, I can't wait to go do this, or to see this person today, or, maybe make this, or go to work and do whatever it is and make a difference in the world today. All of those things have gone to the wayside, and all that is left is a bottle of alcohol or a needle or a bottle of pills or a bag of powder or whatever it is, but that is all that our life becomes at a certain point. No one wants to end up there. And the thing about it is that nobody starts out like this. We all started basically from the same starting point, the same jump off point, where we tried alcohol for the first time, where we tried a substance for the first time, and we felt that pure bliss. We felt that feeling of weightlessness, and all of our stress and problems and worries just melt away for an allotted amount of time. And after we felt that euphoria and that feeling of not having a worry in the world, and nothing stresses you out, and everything is funny, and you're happy, and you want to feel that way forever. You never want that feeling to go away. And as soon as we feel that for the first time, the hook is set. And for the rest of the time after that, it might not be where you're waking up every single day in the beginning chasing that dragon, but eventually over time, you do it the first time, it feels great. Maybe you wait a little bit of time before you do it again. You do it again, feels great. And as time goes on and progresses, the time in between of not using gets shorter and shorter and shorter, to where we finally end up where it's all day, every day. And that's all that our life has become, is just chasing this feeling, chasing that high, chasing that feeling of no anxiety, no stress, and no worries. But like I said, it eventually gets to a point where that stops working. And then we get into this deep, dark place of depression, isolation, loneliness, hopelessness. And we feel like we can't get our way out. And the reason I'm talking about this today is that wherever you are in your sobriety right now, and if you're playing around with the idea and thinking about maybe going back and using today, tomorrow, this weekend, next week, a month from now, maybe you're thinking about just drinking on Thanksgiving Day, or maybe you're tooling around with the idea in your head of drinking during the Christmas holidays, or maybe you've got some event coming up this weekend your friends have invited you to, and you keep thinking about it, and you know that if you go that you're going to either drink or use, and you keep telling yourself that you don't know if you want to go or not, because you know for sure that if you go to this you're going to drink or use. But you keep telling yourself right now that if you do, that you'll probably be okay. You can do it just one time. You've got 6 months under your belt right now, and you haven't drank or used yet. So why would you, if you drank just this weekend, why would you go back to it full time if you did so? And the reason I'm talking about this today is because if we go back one time, that's potentially where we're going to end up back at again, in that place of deep, dark depression, deep, dark isolation, a feeling like you're never going to be able to get yourself back out of that again, the feeling of shame and guilt that will not leave you. You feel like a horrible human being. You feel like a waste of space, and like you shouldn't even be here anymore, and like you're not productive to society anymore, so why should you even be here? And these really dark thoughts, you know, they hang around and linger in your mind day in and day out, and you start to feel like you don't even need to be here anymore, and maybe the world would just be better off if you weren't here. And, you know, things like that really start to go through our head. At least I know that they went through my head. I thought those kinds of thoughts all the time because I was so depressed. I was in such a dark place, and I was in that place for so many years. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know how to get myself out. I was so afraid of what was on the other side. I was so afraid of going through the withdrawals and what that might lead to, and, you know, what might happen if I was to try to quit. And then, you know, also the thoughts of, how do I live my life without alcohol? What do I do at that point? How do I deal with all of these uncomfortable feelings that I don't want to feel? You know, how do I get past those without my alcohol? And the thing is that life's all about those feelings. Some days, you know, we experience this whole rainbow of feelings. Some days we don't feel a whole lot. You know, you might just feel just like melancholy all day, and maybe a little bit happy, maybe a little bit sad. But, you know, it's good to have feelings throughout the day. It's not good to just feel numb all the time, because what's going to excite you? What's going to motivate you in life? You know, one of the things about life is pain is a motivator. And, you know, it's like when you touch a hot stove or a red hot piece of metal. The first time you see it, and you know it's a red hot piece of steel or something like that, and you touch it, you don't know what's going on. You know, let's say that you've never touched hot steel before. You don't know that it's going to burn you. You put your hand on it, it burns your finger. You know right away never to do that again. Or to touch the top of a hot stove, you know never to do that again. It's the same thing with pain in life, and, you know, sadness and all these different emotions that we go through. You know, as we experience them, as we go through life, we learn not to do certain things again. We learn that if I do this, XYZ will happen on the back end. You know, it's like 1 + 1 = 2, and this is what will happen each time. We learn not to do and to do certain things throughout life because of pain. Pain teaches us. Pain not only teaches us about, you know, what to do and what not to do, but pain also helps us with our relationships and just every single aspect of life. We're supposed to feel pain. Are we supposed to feel pain all the time? Well, absolutely not. But pain is a good tool in life. And when we're constantly intoxicated, we're not feeling any pain at all, we're not getting any feeling of being uncomfortable at all, we're not learning about anything in life. We're just going through life with one feeling, one emotion, and that's it. And that's just no way to live. My point to today's video is that, once again, if you're playing around with the idea of going back to drinking or using again, don't do it today. Let's stay sober one more day. I know I say this all the time, but it really is one day at a time, guys. It truly is one day at a time. We live our lives one day at a time. Why wouldn't we take our sobriety one day at a time? Just keep hanging in there and don't fall back. Think about where you were at, you know, right before you got sober. And were you in that deep, dark place of depression, that deep, dark place of isolation, that hopelessness, feeling like you're never going to be able to claw your way out of that dark place that you ended up at? If you have, and I know a lot of you have, do you want to go back there again? Do you want to go back there to laying on your bathroom floor, crying yourself to sleep at night because you just finished throwing up all over the place, you know, for the 4th night that week, and you don't understand why you keep doing this to yourself? Or you're laying in your bed at 1 o'clock in the morning and everything's spinning, and you're like, why did I do this to myself again? I promised myself I wouldn't end up here again, and here I am, can barely go to sleep, everything's spinning, I feel like I'm about to get sick. Let's not end up there again today. Let's just stay sober. It truly isn't worth going back to all of that. And we can go on continuing to live our very best lives. You know, it's one of those things. I know that when we get in the beginning of our sobriety that we feel lost and we don't know what to do without the alcohol or our substance, because life seems kind of boring when we first get sober. You know, for one, we've removed ourselves from all of our friends for the most part, probably. You know, if we have friends that are either drinking or using, you know, we're not hanging around them anymore because, I mean, it's pretty obvious if we're hanging around with those people, the likelihood of us using again is pretty high. You know, so we've probably removed ourselves from a lot of our friends and associates. We're not going out and doing the same things anymore. You know, probably you were going out to the bars a lot on the weekends or hanging out with friends at their houses and going to parties on the weekends, and you're not doing that anymore. There's a lot of things. It's a total flip on our life. It really does flip our life upside down. It takes time getting used to living in this new manner. It takes time getting used to dealing with your emotions and what do you do to kill time and have fun and all of these types of things. But with practice makes perfect, and with time you'll get used to this new way of life, and I promise you it is your very best life. Let's stay sober one more day, guys, and not end up back in that place again. So guys, thank you so much for watching today. Like I said, let's stay sober one more day. I know that you can do it. I know that I can do it. I know that you can do it. I know that whoever you are watching this right now, by the time that this video gets posted, it's probably going to be, I don't know, sometime this afternoon, and you know, there's only going to be a couple more hours left in the day. I know that you can push through it. I know that you can. If you're in the beginning stages of your sobriety right now and you feel like you're about to pull your hair out because you just can't sit still and everything's frustrating you and nothing's fun anymore and you can't find happiness in life and you're just super frustrated with everything, give it some time. I promise you things do calm down and get back to normal again. Just hang tight. Those first few days that you've gone through, those first few days of hell that you've had to deal with, of no sleep, RLS, puking, diarrhea, cold sweats, body aches, headaches, all of the things, you know, the confusion, the blurry vision, all of that stuff that you've had to go through. Do you want to throw all that away for no reason? Just keep pushing forward. Do you want to have to go through all that all over again? Just keep pushing forward. You don't want to go back to that. You've already made it through the hard part. Just keep going. It's a mental game from here. It truly is. And last but not least, before I get off of here today, that if you're thinking about getting sober, alcohol or benzodiazepines can be life-threatening if you're thinking about quitting them. Please speak with the doctor first before you attempt to get sober. I have spoken to so many people on here that have done that. They have gone to their doctor, they have gotten the green light to go ahead and move forward. And there have been other people that have gone to the doctor and the doctor told them, no, you're going to have to either get on medication or go through a medical detox or whatever. And it's a good thing that they went and got checked out first and didn't do this dangerously. Please be safe. I am not a doctor. I am not affiliated with any hospitals or doctors. I'm just a normal guy that makes videos on YouTube. I have liver disease, chronic pancreatitis, type 1 diabetes, just a lot of health problems that came from my consumption. And all I want to do is come on here and try to help educate and try to help people to get and stay sober. But I want to make sure that people are doing it the right and the safe way first. So please be careful out there, guys. But your best life is truly waiting for you. It's only a few steps away. We can all do it. Let's stay sober one more day, guys. Thank you so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. And until tomorrow, I will see you guys then. I love you all so much. Let's stay out of that deep, dark hole today. There's no reason to have to go back to that again. I'll see you guys in tomorrow's video.